In this video, I chat to Mark Knight, head of Toolroom Records, about his brand new artist album, his debut artist album. We listen to some tracks, we talk about Toolroom Academy, we talk about Toolroom Records. It's a full-on, in-depth chat. He also gives me his 5 things producers need to know. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Grahame from Data Transmission, and if you've not been on my channel before, we talk about music business, we talk about social media, and sometimes we have in-depth interviews with big artists. I'm also a Twitch partner and stream on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. So come and join me over on Twitch. If you click in the little thing in the corner, there's some more information about my Twitch partnership. Mark Knight joined me on the stream, and we talked about went through his whole album. We listened to loads of the tracks off the album. He talked about the stories behind those tracks, and gave us loads of insight about Toolroom, how he came about, some of his choices, why he chose records. If you're thinking of making an album, this interview is for you. He also gave us his 5 things producers need to know, and he joins that series. If you've not seen those series before, click the card in the corner, then you can watch some of the other ones. Previously on that series has been David Guetta, Danny Howard, and a whole host of other people, so go and check them out. Without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in and see what Mark has to say. So, welcome to all those that are joining us. It's myself and Mark Knight in the house. We're going to be talking about his brand new album, Untold Business. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for doing this. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. Welcome to Twitch.
Yes, glad to be here, and thank you for everyone taking the time out to come and listen in to myself and Grahame. I really appreciate it. It's very cool, very cool.
Yeah, it's good fun. How's the last year and a half been for you?
Do you know what? Good. I've really enjoyed it in a weird way. I have on many levels, personally, creatively, from a business perspective. I think it's, I always view opportunities in life. If one door shuts, then go and open another one. I'm not, it's all about that. It's okay, well, touring's gone or whatever. Let's go and do something else. Let's go and put my focus and energies into other things. And I've really enjoyed shifting my focus into other things. I've been on the road for 20 years straight, pretty much, as a DJ. Ooh. So to have a break from that is not only healthy, but, mentally and physically, it's also, I think it's rewarding and challenging in other areas. So I've got to say, yeah, I have enjoyed it. I mean, it's sad what's happened to a lot of the industry and people who've been affected by COVID. My heart, really goes out to people, but I've just seen it as a different opportunity.
Wicked. Did I see you went away travelling around the UK in a van? Did that happen in lockdown?
It did happen, yeah. I mean, one thing I have discovered, I am a massive football fan. I play 2-3 times a week.
Yep.
And my son's doing really well at football. We are football mad in our household. So I think the biggest change we had was the lack of football, and that really hit us. But we discovered mountain biking, and I am obsessed with it now. I absolutely love it. Again, it's something I wouldn't have found without lockdown. And yeah, we hired a camper van, me and my mate and his 2 boys and my boys' best friends. We call ourselves the Dangerous Gang. We take the bikes and we put us on the back of the van, and we went all over the country to all the different trails, and had some really good times, proper, lads on tour stuff. It was brilliant, really, really good. We're planning Dangerous Tour Part 2 as we speak in August. So yeah, it's those sort of things, connecting with simple things that you may have been somewhat disconnected in the music world we live in, that I found myself, loving. And I think reconnecting with Mark Knight more than anything, I think if I'm open and honest, I think I've reconnected with myself as a person more now than I have done in the last 20 years. And I'm really happy with myself and where I am in life right now. And in some ways, I don't want that to change, and it's about striking a balance of when things do return of making sure that it's weighted towards more where I am now, I suppose, than where I was previously, if I'm being brutally honest.
Did you enjoy more family time by the sounds of it, lots of it? Will your touring schedule then reflect that going out of this? Will you weight more towards family time and yourself? And
100%. I mean, ever since my little one was on 3, when he was old enough to comprehend me not being there, I've only done 2 weekends a month. And I'm going to scale that back to maybe 1 weekend a month, and enjoy just really, not like I didn't enjoy DJing, but it's like anything. If you're playing the cup final every weekend, the cup final wouldn't mean as much to you. And I want every gig to feel like I'm playing in the cup final. And if you do 3 gigs every weekend and on, then that changes, and it's such a privileged position to be in. And I want it to be like, I cannot wait to go and DJ this weekend, not I'm stuck in an airport somewhere. Now that sounds really, I don't want to come across as crass, but I think there's so much more diversity in life, and I've got to a point where in my life and my career where I'm going to afford myself the opportunity to be diverse as a person, enjoy all the facets of life, all the things that make me whole and happy and sane and complete as a person. So yes, my touring schedule will reflect all of those dimensions that make me me.
Sounds nice. I think myself as well. Like I've definitely enjoyed just being at home and just not being a mentor for so much. It's been nice. Like I definitely think my clubbing, going out as well, will reflect that as less going out, but just more kind of the ones that really matter for me.
It's always quality over quantity, Graham. I think in life always, and I think that's what this made us reflect and look upon. And I think I do hope that mantra, that kind of mindset is absorbed by the music industry. We have this huge issue with mental illness with the industry. We're always talking about, but yet we set ourselves up for a foul every time, It's like, if you're going to go and live at a party and have the most logistically challenging touring schedule known, then answer the question yourself. Just saying it out loud. You're going to fail. You are going to fail as a human being. It's not sustainable. It won't work. You'll have mental health issues. This is the great reset opportunity. Will we look at that? Probably not. We'll slip straight back into where we were. But, I think the smarter of us will go, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. I don't need to, And yeah, sure, what you're going to lose financially, you'll gain in life. And I think this has been the great eye-opener for that.
Do you think that, you're saying you've been outdoors a lot with mountain biking, do you think that fresh air and that kind of new energy will transposed into this album?
I think just the headspace that not touring and not being on that kind of hamster wheel of, right, must do a track to post about my socials, to get a gig, and then, all right, let's do another track. And you're on this kind of cycle. It's very hard to come out of that loop that you're in to say, right, okay, let's do something a bit more considered, a bigger body of work. It's impossible to break that because we live under this ridiculous pressure that we've set ourselves up in this industry, that if you're not touring every weekend, you're not popular, you can't be doing very well. It's that mindset. It's like, well, that's not right. The rest of the music industry doesn't adopt that model. If you said to Oasis, right, lads, we're doing a tour, 20 years straight, no weekends off, who's in? I mean, no one's going to sign up to that. But yeah, as DJ's like, right, I'll do it. Okay, where are we going first? So I think, how much is the first gig? Right. So I think, that all of that has been really refreshing to be able to come out of that loop and go, look, I can do more than that. I can do more than just not underplaying the what I've done with singles, because I stand by everything I do, and I'm proud of every piece of work that I put out. Otherwise, I wouldn't put my name on it. But I think you constantly have to test yourself as a creative to push the boundaries of what you can do, and that's not always possible, especially when you're juggling the running a record label, being an artist. All the you're talking about 3 or 4 hats. It's there's only so much you can do. Being a father, all of those bits that has limitations, and sometimes it inhibits your greater potential because you've got 20. You can do 20% of everything, as opposed to going, okay, I'm going to be 60% of a producer now, or 80%, or 80% a businessman, and work on the business here. It was nice to kind of really get under the bonnet of what we're doing here at Toolroom. There's lots of things I've always wanted to improve as a business. But it's one of those things, if you start to unpick something and you really haven't got the time to see it through, you're like, well, it's not broken. I know it can be better, but if I start to unthread it now, I'm not going to have the time to actually see that through. So there's lots of things we did in the last year as a business. We actually had our most successful year to date.
Amazing.
Well, yeah, and that's testament to everyone's hard work in here. That's you know, that shows the skill and the quality of the people that we have working here. And it's always we, it's never I in this business, of what we can do if we collectively focus our energies on what we fundamentally do, and that's release music. You know, when you're caught up in a world of clubs and trying to do things for cool and look, you shift your focus away from, hang on, we're here to make money and maximize people's records for their fullest potential. And if you cut away all that periphery and go, let's go get focus on our main objective, then you can be very successful. And we had a really successful year, but that is true testament to all the incredible 20 odd people we have working here. So well done to those guys.
Yeah, amazing. You had an amazing year with some big records last year. We're going to start with the album, but we're in Toolroom, so let's talk about Toolroom. Did you start at the beginning of the pandemic and say, right, what are we going to change? How are we going to go forward?
Well, do you know what? I was just in the boardroom now. Excuse these hands I've got behind me. And we were sat here, I'm going to say December 2019. I remember we're having an A&R meeting here and we're going, look, I think we need a slight change of tact here. I think, the industry does. There's not enough love going into the products in general in the industry. It's too disposable. And we have an opportunity in the position we're in to maybe readjust the balance of that by being more song focused, not changing what we are as a business and our sound. That's fundamental. That's key to our success. But maybe we can push the envelopes of music and melody and top lines and songs because, we have the ability to A&R that, to produce it. And the industry hasn't got enough of that product in. You took a snapshot of Beatport that week. We looked at it and everything was just rehash and remakes of old records. And you thought, well, look, let's say we fast forwarded 5 years from now. What records will we bootlegging that sort of were synonymous for this period in time? And they just weren't there. We were struggling to sit down. And it's like, we had a responsibility in the position we are as a label to readdress that. And we started to make small incremental moves. I mean, myself personally, towards that in terms as an idea. The first record I released in March was If It's Love, which what I tried to do is slowly shift the pendulum of what I was doing across to something more soulful, more song-based, yet maintaining the energy of what I'm known for. So the first record I did sort of took all the energy of my record In the Pocket. If you guys are listening, you know that record. I basically took the bottom end of that, the rhythm section, the bass line, all the energy that created, and then put a song on top of it and then threw it into the marketplace and said, would this be accepted? So it's at the right energy. And that was going to be the benchmark to see how far we could go with this. And we sort of tested it with that. Then the pandemic hit, and weirdly, it kind of played into our hands. We were like, well, the only touch point to electronic music now, the only medium of that is radio. And within the kind of musical parameters of what we do at Toolroom, we can shift our focus right over here towards radio and do songs, things that are reminiscent, feel are club orientated, are rooted in club, yet are song based. And we did that all year round, and hence why we had a very successful year. We're now looking again, trying to foresee what's going forward, and we want to shift back more to club focused thing. But it's about addressing the balance of both good club focused music, good radio music. So, weirdly, we'd set this plan out pre-pandemic that then really came to fruition, with club shutting, weirdly, because, look, when's the last time you went into a club and heard a verse?
Unless you're going to...
It just didn't happen.
Maybe certain nights.
Certain clubs, absolutely, but en masse, probably not. And we're like, we could change this. We can change this. We have the ability and the skill set to change this slowly. And that's what we did. We put our focus into that because now you're listening to music through radio, Capital Dance started, you've got Kiss, and you've got all of these great radio stations that are Kiss Dance that are playing dance music all day that are more song focused. So when you go back into a club, you're like, okay, I can live with that. I can listen to All for Love in a club. I'll get that. I can understand. Yes, I want to hear the instrumental, bigger stuff, but it's about maintaining the balance. So yeah, we went into the pandemic with a plan that broke and come into fruition via that, weirdly.
Amazing. There's amazing foresight as well. But mate, congrats.
I'm just about to do the lottery numbers now. Does anyone want to get the old crystal ball out?
Tell us if England are going to win the Euros as well. That'd be nice.
Yes, we are. Definitely. Positive thinking will get us to winning that. 100% we are winning that.
Talking about Capital Dance, actually, I was driving back from my run this morning and they played Everything's Gonna Be Alright. Then they played Vice, Feel My Knees, and then they played a Left Winger Cody track, 3 in a row. And I was like, this is a strange morning. I've got Toolroom coming out of my speakers all morning. It was lovely.
That was how we were so successful last year, by making records that were rooted, in club, that had the DNA of a club record, yet had the musicianship and hooks that would then be playable on radio. And if you can sit nicely in that sweet spot, that's always what we've been about. We don't profess to be super underground or super commercial. That's where we sit. We really honed our skills about realigning ourselves in that position in the marketplace, so that, you could go and listen to Feel My Knees on the radio and it feels right. Go into a club here, Feel My Knees, and it feel right. That's what we wanted to do in 2020 and continue, and on.
Wicked. Well, shall we play that first track? Let's play that Rene, the track with Rene Amesz, and we'll talk about that a bit more, and we'll talk about the album a bit more after this. Let's play that. Wicked. So that was All for Love, and that was the first single you released. We're back in now, Mark. That's wicked, man. One in the chat said, where was it? Some clever sampling here, Mark, on that track.
Yeah, that was obviously that samples Brick, Living from the Wall, a record from the 70s. Lot of it was sampled by Johnny Corporate, which is DJ Spen, in 2001. He did an instrumental version of that. And fair play, this is Rene's idea to sample it again. We didn't sample it. There's no sampling. We actually recreated everything. Everything's replayed. There's no samples on the album at all. It just felt like that. Such a great hook. And the top line was written by Andrea Triana, who is amazing. You may know her from The Vision. She wrote the top line, and Laura, who's Stacey Lopez, sung it. I mean, to be honest, this was actually the second single. The first single was If It's Love. That was a more energetic one. And then this one, with the success of that, I thought, well, look, how far can we push the boundaries with this? This was the real acid test of pre-album. I thought, if this is going to be accepted, then go for it, Mark. Do the album. You really express yourself, all the things you've wanted to do for years. Because if this is accepted, and it is a relatively soulful record, then it gives you the opportunity to do that. And got A-list Radio 1, Kiss to A-list, possibly the biggest radio record of my career, that with my name in it, that I hadn't produced for someone else. And that was real. It was the catalyst for writing the album. I thought, well, this has been accepted at that level. If this has, then I need to, to go and do this album because it can work.
So that one came. So then you started the album after that track came out.
Yeah, because that came out in September. Yeah,
wow.
I think it was September of 2020, and then I did the album in about 5 months. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, and I've always had this kind of blueprint of an album in my head, and a concept of what I wanted it to be. And I had the time, and I thought, well, if I don't, I'll be underselling myself and underselling my opportunity. I'll be stupid not to. So it was great. I mean, the hardest part was finishing it. I was like, oh, what do I do now? I want to do another one now. I've done that now. This is brilliant. I love this. Can I do another one already? Can I write album number 2 straight away? That was the toughest part of it. I loved every minute of doing it. It was brilliant.
Did you write them kind of in song order, or did you do parts and then go back into them? Or how was that process?
Well, because we had a couple of issues that were challenging, because we were in lockdown, and I wanted this album to be written in a very traditional sense. Musicians in a room, me with the concepts behind all of them, knowing what I wanted to achieve, and then casting and pooling the right talent for each track. That's what production is. The greats in history approach production in that sense. That's what it is. Without trying to sound grandiose, that's what Quincy Jones would do. He's not going to rock up to the studio and go, righty, let's boot the old laptop up. Okay, I'll engineer this, I'll mix this down, I'll record it, I'll write the top line, I'll get some bits of splice. It doesn't work that way. That's not how the traditional albums are written. And I wanted this album to be a real traditional piece where you'd listen from track 1 to track 13, not skip any of it, and be consumable in a way that wasn't over-facing. This isn't an album full of club bangers. It's an album that you put on at a barbecue in the car, if you're down the gym. It's the pre-party. It's not the main event, it's the great warm-up. And I wanted it to be that thing where you feel comfortable playing it all the time. It's not overfacing, it's not too overpowering, and it had a thread that is basically all the things that influenced me from growing up in the 70s and 80s right the way through to now. I've taken influences, all the things that have really hit me as a person and somewhat shaped the producer I am today. All the things that really touched me and inspired me and blew me away. What I wanted the album to be is an ode to all those things. All of those things in my kind of timeline in life. When I heard the first disco record, when I heard, incredible productions of Jam and Lewis in the 80s, and then Masters at Work in the 90s, all the things that really blew me away. And I was like, wow, what is this? Reimagined the way I saw it through the medium of house and how I know how to produce, but influenced by all these things. You know, as we'll go through the album, there's a backstory to every record and where it came from, where the ideas, where the inspiration's rooted. So I'd always had this blueprint in my head. All I needed was the time, and the other thing, I had the ability to do it. I mean, I started off writing, you know, one of my first introduction into electronic music, into house music, was writing super, super soulful house. I mean, the first record I ever released was on Dave Lee's Z Records. That's the world I come from. Yeah, I mean, I cut my teeth playing with Bobby and Steve. I mean, they gave me my first breaks at Garage City. You know, I was a proper US soulful house head. That's where I came from. I mean, I didn't get house music at the beginning, if I'm blatantly honest. It was just too straight for me until I heard soulful house. I was like, wow, get it. Coming from a real soulful background, soul and hip hop, you know, I couldn't find the overlap until I discovered soulful house. I mean, I've had touch points with things like 10 City and that in the past, but when I discovered soulful house and ecstasy, it was like, wow, this is brilliant. It's a reality, you know, and then away you go. But yes, that was very much my introduction to it. You know, and I'd love to have done something of this scale back in the day, but I just didn't have the skills to do it, you know. It's the reality. And 20 years later, you know, of writing music, and not for myself, but producing bands and pop acts and everything in between, got to the point where I go, well, I can really do this now, and, you know, make a decent job of it, and a good reflection of what I can do as a producer, and I've got the headspace. So all the stars aligned, you know, in the pandemic, and the resulting factor was the album.
When you started the album, did you make notes of all those influences and kind of go, right, there needs to be something that sounds like this, there needs to be something that's got this influence, there needs to be something that's got that? How, like, was that kind of a process?
Do you know what? It burned at the back of my mind for so long, I didn't even have to write it down. I just knew what they were. You have all these little compartments in your head, must do that, or must remember to do that. And then it's like, right, you've got a year off touring, right, go! And it all just came out. So, yeah, I didn't even have to get to that level of sophistication. It was already in there. I just knew what I wanted to do. I mean, so I just wrote 13 tracks, and all 13 would be, you know, I'm not one of these guys who I'm going to do 60 tracks and then see what's the best. No, I'm going to do 13. I know what they are, and I know how to execute them, and that's what we're doing. That's the plan. Nothing more, nothing less. So that was the kind of...
nice.
Yeah, that's how it came together.
Wicked. Let's talk about the collaboration with Beverley Knight and the London Community Gospel Choir. That video looked like it looked like a laugh first and foremost in the studio. How did that come about? Let's talk about the stories behind that track, for instance.
Well, but we were knee deep in the pandemic at the time, and I thought, you know, I wanted to do a record on the album that was influenced by Sounds of Blackness. You know, the records I'd heard in the 90s, Testify and Optimistic, and how much they hit me in terms of how deep they went, the impact of those records, how much they had on my soul. Again, produced by Jam and Lewis, and then remixed by Frankie. But how, if you put them on now, how they still stand the test of the time. And I thought, the world's ready for another one of those moments, one of those records, and I had it in me. I thought, I'm going to write one of those records, and always think big, always punch above your weight in life, always, because no one will stop you, you know. And it's having the bravado and the guts to do that, and think as big as you can. And I wanted one record on the album that was super grandiose, you know, like inspired by Gamble and Huff and those kind of productions from the 70s. You know, it's got with everything being live. Everything on the album is live, but, you know, with a huge string section, some incredible musicians, Andy Robertson guitars, Alex Preston played guitars on it, James Hurd played keys on it. I pulled together the best of the best, and I thought, well, if, you know, if the backing track's going to be this, then I need to think big in terms of the top line. Again, Andrea wrote the top line. I went to Andrea and said, look, I've got this idea. I went to her with a reference and an idea of what I wanted it to be. And we've kind of got this Elton John, Bernie Taupin type writer production collaboration going on. The two things we've done have both struck gold. So I explained to her what I wanted. She just nailed it. She's just brilliant. She's just brilliant. And then I said, well, we just need, we need someone to sing it. And I saw Beverley do a rendition of Optimistic with the House Gospel Choir online. And she nailed it. I thought, look, one of these UK talents that are so underrated, really. I just felt, it was the right thing to do, to join the dots between her and myself, sharing the same surname and whatnot. I thought, look, this is a bit scripted. Let's do it. So I just hit her up and said, look, I've got this record out of the blue. And if I got Pete Tong to do me a quick intro, because I know Peter worked with her on his orchestra show. So he did an intro to Beverley for me. And do you know what? Super cool, super down to earth. Just one of us, just one of us, just real good girl. And she's like, love it, let's just do it. No, I want this session feel, I want that one. This just like, yeah, cool, let's do it. When we should do it next week. Brilliant, yeah, let's do it. And then I hit up the London Community Gospel Choir, explained what I wanted to do with them. I was always been a huge fan of what they've done. And yeah, again, the stars just aligned and the project came together. And do you know what? When I first watched the video back, proper lump in my throat. I was like, do you know what? I've sort of created something I'll be proud to show my grandkids. And my dad, who was a musician, he welled up, and I thought, well, if it's done that, it's done what this record wanted to do. I wanted to really stir people's emotions and not exploit the situation we're in, but have, without sounding naff, a record that was a bit of a glimmer of hope, was something a bit more uplifting and a bit that stuck out a little bit. And I knew it'd be difficult placing it radio because it was a bit, dare I say, more mature sounding. So I knew that it would come with challenges in terms of exposure. But I think if you do something to the best of your abilities and you really believe in it, it will find its way home. And it's still on the A-list on Radio 2 now. So you just got to believe in your vision and your dream and what you want to achieve. And if you have, enough positive energy in that and you execute it properly, then things can happen. And it did with that record. Everything that I presupposed and planned with it came to life. Just need England to win the Euros now, that's all.
Skeleton Keys in the chat said Night and Night sounds like a TV cop show.
Oh yes, we're in talks with Netflix at the moment. Look out for that, coming soon.
Right, let's play that record and then we'll carry on.
Love will
So that was Everything's Gonna Be All Right, featuring Beverley Nights. Hey, Mark, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again, Grahame. Much appreciated.
Where did the title come from? Let's go right to the top of the album.
Untold Business, it's my favourite track on the album. And I like the way that the title had different connotations. You could interpretate what that meant individually from me. What does Untold Business mean for me? Are these all the records you'd never heard from me, the other side of me you didn't know? I don't know, I just like the fact it was a bit ambiguous in that respect. You could view the meaning of that title in your own way, and I'm not going to frame it for what it is. The song's brilliant. The song was actually written, top line was written by a guy called Simon Lord, who's singing Mobile Disco. I have another project that I do, I'm going to drop soon, which is completely different. It's probably the antithesis of this. It's like somewhere between Prodigy, the Underworld and Chems, that myself and Dean Ramirez have written. I can't wait to play people that at a point. It was born off the back of producing the Underworld's album. Me and Dean sat there and we were like, this is brilliant. We've learnt so much from Carl and Rick. It's amazing, life-changing experience working with them. But we could do something. Let's have a go at doing it ourselves. And we wrote this song with Simon, and it didn't quite fit on the album. But lyrically, I just thought it was genius. And if you listen to the words of it, you get a chance to check it out, have a listen, just listen to the lyrical content on it. But it didn't quite make sense in the context it was originally written for. But I knew I had this in the locker, and I knew what I wanted to do with it. And Gene was over, Gene Farris, and I said, Gene, look, I've got this top line. I'm going to slow it right down to 100 BPM. Let's redo it, because I love your voice, but I want to do something special with you. Gene's a really good friend of mine. He's one of the nicest guys and most talented guys you will ever meet. Again, super grounded, super down to earth, one of the lads, love him to bits. And we've been trying to do a track together forever. And I said, look, Gene, if we do something, it's got to be special, man. It's got to be different. I don't want to just do a tech house record with you doing lyrics. We could push ourselves much further than that. So I had this top line in the locker, and I said to him, look, let me play this. He said, man, that's brilliant. I love it. Let me change some bits. And he did put his spin on it, added another 20, 30% to it. And I knew what I wanted to do with the backing track. I wanted it to be reminiscent of kind of the early hip hop that I love. The storytelling and the comedy and the fun in the lyrical content and the soulfulness of the backing tracks. Stuff that I fell in love with in the mid 80s, like Houdini and artists like that, and Kool Moe Dee. And I wanted to do something that was representative of when hip hop come out of the 80s, but it was still rooted in the soul of the 80s. But with all this new lyrical content. So I wanted to do something, that reflected me living through that period. I mean, I've been very fortunate enough to live through two huge youth movements. One, hip hop, the discovery of hip hop, and then house music. I mean, so fortunate to have, grown up through both. When hip hop first hit, I was just like, oh my God, what is this in the 80s? And I wanted the record on the album to be representative of that experience I'd had with it. And that's how I saw it. And Gene and Simon nailed the top line. And I myself, a guy called Lachlan, who's Jar Funk, who's an exceptionally talented keyboard player, and Clementine Douglas wrote the song. And that's how it came together. Again, it's just a very inclusive, collaborative process. I mean, there's about 6 or 7 people across this record. This is far from me just rattling out on a laptop. This is like pooling the best of the talent and you find fitting for the record. I'm really, really proud of this one, and that hence why it was not only it was the title. I like the meaning of the lyrics in the track, and I just love the track so much because I think it just sits in its own space. It doesn't try to be anything else. It's not, there's nothing else. There's not too many records around like this, and that's why I loved it. It just felt original and unique and representative of what I wanted to achieve with the album.
Did it all the collaboration, were they all in a studio, or was there online stuff, or was it all in London and all in where you are? Sorry, Kent even.
No, well, mostly I live in London, so most of it was in town. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things we couldn't do. The record with Damon Truitt, he's based in DC in Washington, so unfortunately couldn't do that. and Robert Owens, we couldn't get together face to face. He's in Berlin, but he was in the studio with Jamie Anderson in Berlin, and we managed to do a Zoom. So it's as close as we could get it, because as I say, I wanted the album to have those traditional values and be put together in that respect. That it wasn't me just doing a lot of backing tracks, farming out, and getting the best load of top lines and just picking and choosing the best one. It was a very inclusive, collaborative process, and which is really reflected in the artwork. When you look at the artwork on the album, it shows everyone involved in it, and that's what we want it to be. This is not my album. This is our album. This is what we did together. I might be the steering wheel, but I couldn't do it without those people. And it's one of those albums, with the credits on the back. Like in the old days, you'd go over to the record store and you go through the back and you just, he played on that one, and he played on that one. I've got a record with him on. And I want it to have that feel of like, look at all these people behind the scenes that make this product, and really represent that.
Hearing those, like it makes you feel warm, like a little bit inside, like you've been through that process. That gives you a little warm hug that all that kind of process was thought about. It's lovely, man.
Yeah, I had the time and headspace to do it, and I've got an incredible team around me. And if you can, you should. Cool.
Well, let's listen to Untold Business. Oh, we go back in there and let's listen to that one.
Are running smooth doesn't mean that someone isn't pedaling. You gotta know where that trail begins. What do you think caused this to fly? You think it's no more than meets the eye. You put your faith in an invisible guy. Do you think it's bright wings when you die? Untold business happening. Untold business happening. From your head to your toe, the work begins. It's untold business happening. Say what? Untold business happening. Untold business happening. From your head to your toe, the work begins. It's untold business happening. What? Say what? It's untold business happening.
Untold Business. That track sounds amazing. Barbecue vibes, totally with that track.
Exactly, that's what the album's supposed to be. It's a listening experience, you know. It should be comfortable in any scenario that you can just put on and just nod your head to and get down and feel like, you know, it should be the sparks going, right, I want to go out tonight. Do you know what I mean? It's not the 2 a.m. moment. It's that one that just tickles you and goes, well, let's get out. Let's make some phone calls and go out, you know? It's that album.
Have you been making 2 a.m. records as well, or was the focus the album?
I've gone back to writing some 2 a.m. stuff, of course. You know, there's two sides of what I do. One is, you know, very rooted and very club focused, and I love doing that. And the other is, you know, me as a producer, not only writing songs and stuff for myself, but for other people. So I like to keep the whole thing mixed up, you know, because if I do the same thing over and over again, it just becomes, maybe it's monotonous, it just becomes a bit formulaic. You can't help it. You can't help yourself because and that's not challenge enough. You know, you need to put some disruption in. You need to, disrupt the flow a bit. Come out of the headspace of doing one thing, go and do something completely different, take the inspiration for that, and then the desire to go back to the other thing you do and reapproach it with a passion. You know, if you do the same thing over and over again, I find that, A, I don't find it challenging enough, and B, it doesn't invigorate me enough. I like to do things to be multifaceted, my approach. I like the fact that I'm trying to, you know, juggle 15 plates at the same time. That gets me up in the morning. That fires me up. It's like, don't let one drop, you know? So,
I hear that completely. Like you're literally standing going, right, come on, let's keep them all going and go for a run at the same time. And keep healthy as well. And look after the kid who's screaming in the corner.
All of that.
Question in the chat, is the album coming out on vinyl? Because I know a lot of people want that.
It is actually, yeah. I mean, in about 2027, by the time it gets finally pressed. No, I mean, the biggest problem you've got with vinyl is just the lead times for pressing things. It's ridiculous because there are very few pressing plants left in the world. Just getting the actual product manufactured is the biggest challenge. But it's happening, and I'm glad that I've had so many people ask me that. Hopefully, people will go out and buy it on vinyl because we're going to press a fair few of them. But yes, it will be. Just stand comms with us. I'll let you know as soon as I know more back from the when that's expected. Of course, I'll let you guys know through social media or whatnot. Just hit me up and ask, and then we'll look after you.
Amazing. Yeah, I want them just from listening to the chat of all the notes on the back. Like, I don't want to literally just do that, sit and read all the notes on the back of the vinyl.
I used to love that. When I used to go into town when I was a kid, when I was for about the age of 12. I used to love coming home from the train. I'd go, have my bag of records and then just spend the whole train journey on the way home going, oh, wow, and just reading the credits, because you absorbed all this information before you knew what production meant or was. You were inadvertently being exposed to all these little nuances and little sound bites of information that helps to build the building blocks to what you do later on in life. Understanding what's an arranger, what's a string arranger, what does that mean? What okay, this guy played percussion on this and he played percussion on that, and okay, he's right across, he's a producer, and it's all of that knowledge you picked up just by reading those credits, and I love it. It was as much fun, and I suppose it built the anticipation when you go and couldn't wait to play it then, because you sort of built all it up by just reading about it. Yeah,
totally. I love doing that as well. Like, always in that, and you come out at a party and someone talks about a record, and you're like, oh yeah, he was on so and so, and they're like, how do you even know that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I must have read it. I think I read it on the note or something, but you don't realise you did. Yeah. Let's jump to the last track on the album, Tonight, with Shania and Mr. V. We've been listening to the album incessantly for a few days, and it was on, and we were in the kitchen, and we were like, what's this track? I'm sure I've heard it all before. We had to go running back to the office in the other room.
Thank you.
And we were like, oh, it's the last one. Right, we need to talk to him about that, because the bass line in it is absolutely ridiculous. I wanted to highlight this track because I love it. Let's talk about this track.
Yeah, this was inspired by the kind of funky house movement in the early noughties, what Kid Cream and Junior Jack were doing. And that whole time there when things started to break for me as a DJ at the end of the 90s and that sort of time, and funky house was the thing, and all those great fretless bass lines that we had. And it was, it was something that really moved me, something I was really into at the time, and I wanted to write a modern day version of that, and that's what Tonight was. I was introduced, George actually hooked me up with Shingai, and she's absolutely brilliant. I mean, she's done a couple of tracks on the album, that and bit by bit, and she's got very R&B tones, and I love R&B tones over house music. It pushes all my buttons, you know, coming from that background and house. It's like you couldn't be in it. You know, that's all, but all the Mark Knight buttons pushed at once. And yeah, I gave her an idea what I wanted to do. I just wanted a hook. I didn't want a verse chorus. Well, I didn't want her to create the verse. I wanted it to have that thing you used to have in the 80s where you'd get on every record where you'd have some guy on the phone to go, "Hey baby, I'm coming over to yours tonight." But to have that, every record in the 80s had one of those moments in, but in a really cringy way. But I thought, I want to take that idea and see if I can make it cool. So I spoke to Victor, Mr. B, and said, "Look, dude, got the hook. Don't want Chennai to sing a verse, but I want you to create the verse as if you're talking to her on the phone, and it's a kind of question and answer thing." And he got it straight away, you know, having grown up himself through that period. He said, "Look, I want to do it in a non-corny way, just to do something different." But the record, the foundation of the record, very much rooted in the kind of funky house sound of the early noughties.
I love that era. I think that's the start when I started going clubbing in London, going across on a
Brilliant.
Saturday night and just listening to that sort of music.
I knew you was going to say the Cross. I knew you was going to say the Cross.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
It's before I started working
time.
at Terminals. It was just like go to the Cross on a Saturday night and listen to that music in that middle arch as well. Was flipping the one, man.
I used to play there for Type for Seb Fontaine's night. Yeah, and it was all the sort of stuff that I played back then, you know, and it was weird because it was so massive funky house, and then it became like a dirty word, you know.
Yeah.
It was really weird how it just become, it much like disco, it's sort of self-combusted, which is a real shame because I think there's bits of it that are great and stand the test of time. And again, it was something that really inspired me, and I had a lot of fun making and playing at the time. You know, all the early stuff I made with, you know, was either soulful house or funky house. So it's a world that I've been part of. And again, I just wanted to do an updated version with the right production techniques of now, the right sonics of now, the right energy of now, but rooted with its history in the funky house sounds of the early noughties.
It's funny because I've been thinking for a while that like, you know, as things in music goes in cycles, I've been thinking for a while, that part of time needs to get its cycle round. I've been kind of waiting for it to kind of like happen for a while. Like I'm like, come on, someone's got to do it. Someone's got to kind of kick that off. And
there you go. Yep, and there it is. I mean, yeah, I've been trying to do that for a while. I've done a few things like that. I did a thing on. Well, I've done things that are reminiscent of that. You know, look, I'm certainly not inventing any. I'm not inventing any wheels over here. You know, as you say, it's about being clever, about exposing moments in musical history and taking the inspiration from that and then go, okay, that's not overplayed, that's not overexposed, let's do something like that. You know, and I'm lucky enough to have the age and experience to have lived through a lot of those times, and it's about understanding the translation of what worked then and how you can reimagine it now in the correct way. And I love that. That's my skill, I suppose. That's my USP, and I learnt that from Dave Lee. That's how I pretty much learned how to produce. I've become really good friends with Dave Lee, Joey Negro at the time, through playing the same sort of clubs, and we got on really well. I just love his sense of humour. I thought it was amazing. He's the driest guy you've ever met. He's just brilliant. And we just played a lot of clubs, and I used to drive him around, and I was making records at the time, and he was like, dude, you want to come and, you know, work with Kevin, my engineer, you know, he'll help you get up to the next level, you know. So I started working with Kevin, and I used to sit in sessions with Dave, you know, and what I learned from Dave was his encyclopedic knowledge of music, and he would know what would work, you know, from certain records. He'd go, hang on, and he used to work with a guy with Michaela keyboard player, and he'd go, hang on a second, he'd pull a record out and go, right, chords like this from this record, and they go, hang on, strings like this from this record. And he knew if you put these things together would be an original composition, original piece, but having that understanding and that kind of musical knowledge to draw from all of these records to then put into a melting pot to create something new. And I thought, well, that's what I can do. I'm not a great musician. I don't profess to be, far from it. In fact, terrible. But I know how to make a record. I know how to draw from experiences and exposure to music, and then take influence of that in that and go, right, put my style on it, come up with something new. And all the album is representative of those touch points of music throughout my life, as I said earlier. And I learnt that skill initially through Dave. I was like, wow, I can do that. I don't have to be, 7th grade pianist. I could just be a producer, because that's what producers are. They're like the project manager of a building site. It's like they know what house you're trying to build, and they get all the right tradespeople in at the right time under their direction to build the project. They don't start building a bungalow and end up building a block of flats. They go, we're going to build a bungalow, and I need a carpenter at this time, I need a bricklayer at this time. And it's about pooling all of that talent and the right people at the right time to make the right project. And I learned that from him. And that's, that model of production, lines have been very blurred, between what a producer is and what it was back in the day. A producer was just that, he was the kind of main man at the end of the chain with a bunch of people below, working with him to create the end product. But I learnt that kind of principle and that from Dave, being exposed to being in sessions with Dave and just watching how we did it. It's like, okay, mate, I could do that. That's the way I should do this.
That's incredible. I always thought about it kind of from the TV production point. There's always a sound man. There's the guy that's shooting the cameras, and I love that one analogy as well. Building the house, that's amazing.
That's how production is in its purest form is.
I didn't realise this was your debut. Like, when I got the thing, it was your debut, and I was like, surely no, he's done more albums than this. But now I kind of hear it. It's like it's amazing. You're now pulling all of this knowledge from years and years and years to go into this one like product, I guess, which is going to last a long, long time because it's the product of all of this time together. It's amazing, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. All you have to do is just give me the time, and and then I could do it. It's just a time thing, isn't it? And like I said earlier, the ability to actually do it. I mean, if I tried to do this 10 years ago, it wouldn't be the album it is now. And hopefully, if I, that's my next challenge as a producer, is to be taken seriously as an artist that does albums. I've achieved all the things I wanted to achieve in singles, and but that's my next project, my next challenge. That's the thing that's going to get me up and fire me up and get me out of bed. Right, what's album 2? I've already got that planned in my head, and I think once you can prove yourself in that world, then you can punch even higher with the people you want to collaborate with next time. Not leaning on that to get you across the line, but going, yeah, I want to work with this guy next, because I think you proved to yourself internally that you can carry it out, and if it yields a result that you can see, okay, it generated X amount of sales, you're in a position to go to the next set of artists and say, dream big. As I said, always punch big, always punch above your weight. Don't be scared to do that, and I really am not scared of that one iota. What's the worst I'm going to say? No.
Yeah.
But you don't ask. You never know. A lot of them say, no thanks. Okay, well, that hasn't killed me, has it? Next. So, I've already got album 2 planned, and I can't wait to get stuck into that.
Amazing. Well, let's listen tonight, and we'll carry on this conversation after.
If I give you a call, will you answer it? Will you transfer it? I need you to stay. I need you in a major way. Come on. You're one of a kind, and I ain't blind. Love's hard to find. I found you when you're on my mind. Come on, come on.
You've been on my mind, and I don't want to be alone. Ain't right? Could you stay a little longer tonight? You've been on my
So that was Tonight. That's the last track on the album. One thing I've noticed recently, there's a kind of a wave of producers that are coming in that are kind of a little bit, let's say, a little bit older, that have done it before, that kind of had a pop the first time, went away and got a career, and then they're gonna got more means now and having another go themselves. And I know a lot of them come through your academy first and foremost, which I do want to talk about academy at some point. But like listening to what you were saying before, like they should be sort of looking at this and saying these are your weapons. Like they have all this knowledge where the young producer won't have of all these records, and it's just like I wanted to kind of get that and tell them before while we were here,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can't buy experience, can you? That's one attribute you've got in your locker that could be utilised. I mean, on the other hand, there's something to be said about just that raw desire and that raw kind of naivety to approaching music you get when you first start. I have to say, the time I enjoyed writing music the most is at the beginning of my career, because there were no expectations, there were no parameters. They were like, fuck it, I'm just going to write a record today. Don't care if anyone likes it. I'm just going to do it. Who cares? And you did. You're like, oh, wow, people like that one. I'm going to do another one today, but I'm going to do one like this. Oh, wow, they like that as well. That's just going well. I like it. I used to work with a guy called Martijn ten Velden, and we did MK and MTV back in the day. And that's, if I probably could pick a time where I loved making music the most, it was then, because I had this just raw... had all these ideas with stuff that I'd heard before and go, what happens if we put that with that? Would that work? Fuck knows, let's try it. Oh, that worked. That was all right. That was a touch. And it was brilliant. So I think conversely, that, don't underplay the potential you have when you first start as well. That's equally as valuable and useful as it is through experience, because you can be somewhat tainted as you get older. So neither one's an advantage over the other. They're both great opportunities, but both should be seized if given the opportunity.
I remember one of those records with Martijn ten Velden. I've got one of those records with Martijn ten Velden. I can see the cover. It's like a black and white cover, and it's on the rack, but I can't remember what track it is, but I can see the cover for sure. Age a little bit.
Oh man, they were the best times ever. We were so broke, we were so skin. It was a joke. Well, we used to live together. We lived at my mum and dad's because we were that broke. And that's how Toolroom started. Basically, it was me and him in the shed outside my parents. That's why it's called Toolroom Records, because it's basically an old shed outside my mum and dad's house. We used to keep the lawnmower and the garden tools. Got a tool room. Basically, I was with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and at the time we both had aspirations. I was teetering around the edges of music, and she wanted to go back to university. We had a house at the time, we sold it, and we ploughed everything into our dreams. She went back to uni. I moved back to my mum and dad's, and with all the money I had, I ploughed it into making a studio in this shed. And it was me and Martijn. At first, we were just doing remixes. I mean, I think we did 25 remixes one year, which was brilliant because it put us on the map when we did Strings of Life and Sandcastles and in the beginning. Although we did, I mean, everyone wanted a piece of us. We just struck gold and it went bananas, but it just burnt us out because we got to the end of it and we were like, right, better do some music from ourselves. We had nothing left. We'd given all of our ideas away in these remixes. But we needed to, because we needed to survive, and we were so broke. I think we had chicken and rice every night for about a year and a half. Like it was like there's the only thing we can afford en masse. So we bought loads of it, and we just lived on that. But it was the best time ever because we were so naive to it. We were just like, let's just make up as we go along, shall we? All right, let's do it. And it was brilliant. So yeah, maturity isn't always the key to it, but if handled the right way, it could be used to your advantage.
I love that about that. I didn't realise that the Toolroom comes from your tool shed. That's cool. This is my disco shed in my garden, and that's where we've now made it into a studio.
We'll look out for Disco Shed Records coming your way very soon. I mean, that is literally what we call it, Toolroom Records. It's still there. The shed's still outside my mum and dad's house. They use it for storage again now, but that's where it started. It was me and Martijn making music out there, my brother indoors inside doing the business side of it, and then it just grew from there. My dad helping out. It's a family business. We use the word Toolroom family, and that's not just a kind of strapline come up by some marketing guru. It is a family-run business. It's me, my brother, and it was my dad to start, and my mum. She'd be running off the royalty reports, and we were all involved. It was very much born as a family concept at the time, I was, making music and messing around trying to, make it in music. My brother was a car salesman. He got the sack, so he didn't have a job. My dad had retired, and we were all sat around where I said, look, let's do something together as a family. That was always my dream, was to work together as a family, is to have a project that we could do together. And I said, Dad, I want to start a record label. I'd release records on other people's labels and been really disappointed and undersold. And, you put your heart and soul into something and then they just flopped it out. I was like, no, we could do better than this. We looked around at the time, it was Strictly Rhythms and Subliminals and all these things we looked up to. And we were like, I want to do that. I want to do something like Subliminal. I want my own record label, with incredible marketing and branding and imagery and a sound. And I want to do it myself. And, I said to my dad and my brother, come on, let's do it. And we did. And then, 18 years later, we're sat in the boardroom still doing it.
Amazing. Do you think there's a lot of obviously small artists now that are kind of trying to get out there and trying to get their music out there? Do you think they should be kind of going through that kind of sending it out to labels or just starting their own projects and having their own bases and, as you did?
I think, if that's a case-by-case decision to make, I think if you feel that you can avail of the platform that various labels will give you and you've got ins on them and you can break into that social scene, because it's as much as their record labels, most of the groundwork that's done getting involved with label, it's just the basics in life. It's just meeting people face to face, getting to know them, because they're only people, it's only me, if you want to send me a record, it's just me, it's no big deal. Do you know what I mean? And go and meet me in clubs, say, oh, Mark, do you want a beer? I've got a record I'll give you. You strike up a bit of a vibe and then you're in. It's not much more rocket science than that, blindly sending a demo off, without much thought, that's a needle in a haystack thing. But breaking into those, those social groups that are associated with labels and just becoming part of it, if you feel that you belong there, that's one route. The other route is mobilising a team and having a vision of what you want to achieve and building your own brand. But it's about having a team, as I've said before. It's always we, it's not I. This is not my label, this is our label, and this is built. The success of it is based on the pooling together of all the brilliant people that work here together under one vision and one dream of what we want to achieve. So if that works for you and you've got the people around you that will afford you to reach that goal, then go down that route. But make sure you've got the right players on the pitch playing in the right position, because, when I started, everything becomes a football analogy.
That's so good. I'm a football fan.
Sorry about that. I'm really just a frustrated footballer, to be totally honest with you. What are you, a footballer, really? It's about having the right people around you. Like, my brother doesn't want to sit in a studio for hours and hours labouring over, a 4-bar loop, in the same way as I don't want to fill out a double taxation form for Portugal. We've got the right people doing the right jobs, and that's what it's all about. So if that works for you and you think you can mobilise a team under your vision, then go down that road, because the world needs more tool rooms, it needs more defecteds, and there's space for it. So if you're out there and you've got a dream then, and you can empower the people around you, then go do it.
One thing obviously in the album is there's lots of vocalists. Actually, a question I got from Instagram was, from a vocalist, where do you find your vocalists?
Just with my ears, basically, listening to things around me and going, you're very good and you'll work on this record, I'm going to give you a shout. It's as simple as that, There's no rocket science to it. And the other trick as well is come out of your lane, go and listen to other music. The trick isn't to use all the same people over and over and over again. The real trick, the way you get ahead of the curve, is to go and listen to other styles of music and go, she's really good or he's really good. I wonder how it would work if I brought you from that scene and put you into this record. It was more challenging with this album because, the premise of what I wanted it to be was this in the room type scenario. It was challenging because I couldn't just jump on a plane and fly someone over from Germany, or fly to Germany, or fly to Spain and do something. I had to work within reason. I work with some of the best people in this country, some incredible talent. But the trick is, with vocalists and to create identity, is to think outside the box, go and listen to other styles of music and just hit people up. People are only people, as I said earlier. You know, what's the worst they can say? No, thank you, I don't fancy going on your song. Or, wow, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd love to be part of it. Simple as that.
Let's listen to another. Let's talk about another track. Alex Mills is a vocalist that I'm loving at the moment.
Yes.
Love her voice, and she's been on a few tracks. I was pleasantly surprised to see her on your album. So let's talk about It's a Wonder and any stories behind that, how that came about, and the track itself.
There's a really interesting story behind that record. Basically, I don't know if you remember, I had a record out called Ibiza a few years ago.
I do. Do you know what? I do, because I premiered it on Data Transmission, so I know it well, and it's done wonders for me. So thank you, first and foremost.
We didn't set that up at all, Graham, did we?
No, we didn't.
That wasn't that link wasn't pre-planned. What was the next line, Graham? So anyway, I had this record, and it done well, and I had all the majors coming after it, and they're like, look, we need a top line, we want to take it to radio, it needs a vocal. So I got a bunch of vocals done, and Alex sent me one, and it was called White Flag, and I thought, this is brilliant. But none of it just sat with me. None of it sat right, you know what I mean? I wanted this record to be what it was. I didn't want to go down the route of changing it to fit into a box, you know, and if it didn't stand up, like Pajano stood up on its own right at radio. Eric didn't put a vocal on it. He didn't move away from his original premise of going, no, it's this. You either get it or you don't. And I went through the process. I mean, there's some massive offers on the table, and my wife probably killed me for not doing it, but I turned them all down because I couldn't find the right top line, and I didn't want to undervalue or underplay or the original integrity of what that record wanted to be. And if radio didn't get it, they just didn't get it. It's one of those things, you know. I did it once before with a record called All Right. I tried it, and I literally got annihilated by everyone because it really worked in its original format, and I tried something more crossover with a different version, and people hated on me for doing it. And I learned from that, I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. You know, just get it right first time. If you can't nail it first time, don't make people put records into a box just because it suits them. You either get it or you don't get it. You know, there's the problems I face with everything's going to be all right. People are, oh, it's nice, but it's a bit soulful, it's a bit old. Well, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Could you do another version that's a bit more housey? No. You either get it or you don't get it. If you don't get it, no big deal, no stress, but you just don't get it. So I had this record, Ibiza. Alex had a top line called White Flag. Anyway, I always remember, this is brilliant, but it's just not right for this project. Anyway, fast forward about 4 or 5 years, heard a record from Sandy Rivera, White Flag, with Alex Mills on it. I thought, this is fucking brilliant. So anyway, I hit Alex up, said, Alex, that's class. She goes, Mark, you absolute donut. She said, I wrote that for you, for your record. I thought, yes, you may have done that. I think, no wonder I knew it. I knew this record from somewhere. So I said, look, come on, let's do something. Doing an album, can you do another one of those? Can you write me something that's really heartfelt, really emotive, you know? She's brilliant, Alex. She can really lend herself for doing something real high energy, main room, to something really that comes from the heart. So I really want you to take your time, write something that really comes from deep inside of this. Let's do something, you know, again, something special. And it's about working with people, pushing them to their limits of what they can do. You know, that's your responsibility as a producer. Can you get another 5% out of something? Can you get another 10%? How far can you push the envelope in that working arrangement so that you feel like you've exhausted the most out of people, but they're comfortable still with what the end product is? You know, that's what you've got to do. You're kind of manipulating not only creativity but emotions. It can be quite challenging when you're in a room with someone and you're like, no, I don't like that. You know, and it's like, how do you take that? How do you still keep them inspired and invigorated in the project, yet get your point across in a way that, and find a sweet spot where they're comfortable and what your vision is. And that's what you've got to do as a producer. You know, don't be frightened if someone sends you something, you're like, you know, it's not quite right, but I'm going to have to say yes because they've done it. That's not the collaborative process. It's about, you know, getting in the room with them, getting, you know, on a level, explaining what you want to get out of a record and working with them until you reach that point. And you know, don't leave a session until you really feel that it's right. And it can be quite awkward and quite challenging, but you know, you learn. That's how you learn and how you grow as a producer. Because if you have a vision for something and you get your point across and then you see it come to light and it works, you build, your confidence builds from that scenario, that point in time. So anyway, so I said to her, I waffled on a bit there, sorry about that. So anyway, I said to her, can you do me another white flag? And she did, and we did. We come in the studio and she did it, and she's just brilliant. I love her to bits. Again, super R&B in her tonality, and I love that. And I was very inspired by, over the last couple of years, the kind of more Afro-beaty sort of stuff that like Frankie Feliciano and Booker T here in this country have been doing. And I wanted to do something that was reminiscent of that, so it's a kind of very percussive backing track with a super soulful vocal, like Black Coffee-esque, you know, something in that world, things that had really touched me and inspired me. And the track with Alex, It's a Wonder, is that.
Shall we listen to it now?
Let's do it.
I love that record.
Oh, great! Yeah, I mean that's the foundation of the record. You know, that's the groove. That's the backbone of the record. So that had to be really, really, really right.
Did you work that out first, and then while she was working on the vocal, or did you? How did that happen? How does that happen generally? I guess.
I suppose but that happened both at the same time because obviously a White Flag. I had a reference point in terms of vocal. I said to Alex, look. Write me something like that, and you know, I didn't want her to come into the set like she did it herself. Didn't want to come into the session and just write it. So that you know, if it's going to come from the heart, I need time to really think about that. So she was writing that at the same time I was writing the backing track, and then we just got in the session together, and yeah, we recorded it. We actually did it a couple of times at the take. I mean, I love Alex. We really challenge each other ourselves in terms of vocal timing and positioning. It's a real war in the studio. It's like, oh, I see it like that. Yeah, I'll definitely leave it like that. Bye, Alex. And as soon as you go, move it again, though. She's so lovely. Kind of both at the same time on that one. But I knew what I wanted. I knew that again with all these records, I knew what I wanted them to be from the get go. So it was just about just fine tuning them to the best of the idea they could be.
Oh, that sounds fun, man. Let's keep talking about tracks. Track 10. When you read this lineup, Mark Knight, D. Ramirez, Robert Owens. Like, you just want to click play straight away. Like, let's go. As soon as I see that name, like those three names, it's like, come on.
Well, Dean is like like the older brother I never had to me. We've done so much together, and I love him to bits. I do genuinely love him. I'd give my right arm for him. I really would do. And we've done some incredible stuff together. And this other project, hopefully, will see the light of day very soon. We spent 6 years doing. Can't wait for the world to hear that. That is a different proposition altogether to this. But we moved to LA together to work together on it. We've done some crazy stuff together as friends. And I wanted to write a track on the album that felt like it was written in 1987. In fact, that was the working title of the track, 1987. And I knew that idea would push all Dean's buttons. Anything analog and patching and spending ages fannying around with synths is right up deanstreet.com. So I said, Dean, look, I've got this idea of doing a record. I want it to feel, the whole thing is totally analog, right? Drums, the whole works. And I want it to feel like it was made in 1987. Those records that I heard around that time, the early house music. I mean, the sort of stuff that 10 City did. I mean, I think if it wasn't for 10 City and their first out their album Foundation, I don't think I would have ever really looked at house music. That really, for me, was that was so instrumental to me in my kind of connection with electronic music. And I said, look, I want to do something that reflects that moment in my life, do something that felt like it was written then. And so Dean was all over that. Of course he was, because he was doing the analog. We'd spent hours. Yes, Dean, we've definitely got a snare now. Please, can we move on from this point? Let me just tweak it for another round. Nope. So I knew that he would love that. And we wrote the backing track. And this was one of the only tracks, unfortunately, logistically we knew wouldn't work because Robert being in Berlin, we couldn't travel and he couldn't travel to us. And if you're going to do a record that personifies that era, there's only a few people to turn to, and Robert's probably top of that list. And he was so lovely. What a nice guy he is. I mean, wow, you should do an interview with him sometime. I mean, some of his stories are just brilliant. He's just a lovely, lovely guy.
I met him when I used to work at Terminals a few times. He'd come down the club and just hang out and went, I should get him on, you're right. Sorry,
you should do, honestly. Some of his stories are brilliant. Yeah, I just said, look, Robert, I want you to do something super heartfelt, super from the soul. And he did. It was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle in terms of how it came across, and we sort of built the song from the parts, which I like about Robert. It's a very ad hoc kind of vocal that he gives you. He gives you a kind of few stems of just stuff. It's got something in there, but your job is to weed out the bits that make sense, emphasise the bits that do, get enough of all the way Robert can deliver a vocal in there, his spoken bit, his sung bit. Make sure you've got enough pieces of all the bits that sound Robert Owens in the right amount, in the right order. I think sometimes a lot of producers work with him I think sometimes the vocal arrangement could be better. Do you know what I mean? It's about having enough of the right moments at the right time. And if you get that right, like tears and all of that, it's just mind blowing. That's your challenge, you know, with the record. And he gave us all these great bits. And me and Dean had a lot of fun putting it together. And it's it does what it says on the on the tin. It's supposed to represent that era, and I think it does.
Before we play this record, Dean Ramirez actually has done a video for me on my YouTube. It's 5 things producers need to know. I'm going to ask you your 5 things producers need to know after we play this record. Let's play this, though. I can't wait to play this record. I love this one. 4.
Thank you.
All those dreams, everything. All those dreams, everything. All those dreams, all that we could be. You passed it up.
Wow, what a record. That record that literally transports me back to City Loud at Turnmills on a Saturday night at like 3 a.m. moment where you're sort of hugging yourself a little bit and kind of generally just like that vocal kicks in, you're just like, well, what's going on in the world? But it's amazing, you know? Yeah, as soon as I heard it, I was just like, oh, that's so good.
Thank you. Again, yeah, super chat for that one. So, happy with the whole album. I really am. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty pleased with it. I think if you can listen back to it again, in the concept that you intend people to listen to it, you know what I mean? It's when as a producer, you only tend to ever hear the faults in what you do. You don't listen to music objectively, like, you always listen to it with faults. Oh, that could be louder, but I listen back to it, and I'm happy with it. I can listen through to it in the same context as like other people to listen to it. So I think it's working.
Strangely, it also works in random order because I put it on the first time and I didn't realise my Spotify was on random, and it's just started playing all the tracks obviously in random, and I realised halfway through that it wasn't playing them in order. I was like, bollocks! I need to talk about this in the right order and the right number of the tracks and know what I'm talking about because I'm sort of following it, but it still works in random as well. Just so you're aware.
Yeah, it's got an order, but it could be any order. I don't think it matters too much. I think what you need to do with an album is get people's attention straight away. Or generally when you have albums, you front load the first bit with the bigger records to get people locked in, and then you can get a bit more creative. But I don't think it matters too much, with what order they go. I think the narrative that ties it all together is the soul, and that's in every record.
I hope you're enjoying this chat with Mark Knight. If you are, consider subscribing. Give this little thing a little like. It helps with the YouTube algorithm loads, and it helps other people find it. Let's jump in and listen to Mark's 5 things producers need to know. Right, so on my YouTube channel, we have a series called 5 Things Producers Need to Know. I thought I'd get yours, so I hope you're prepared.
No, not at all. Let's just do it. I love the fact that I'm not prepared.
Amazing.
That'll test me.
Right, okay,
so what do you want to know?
5 things, like literally, it can be anything from a production end to a marketing end to a something in the middle. Like Amesz did his, and his is on my YouTube channel now. So if you've not seen that, go and watch that because it's incredible. Because Dean's a legend. But I'd like to know yours. So let's go for it. Number 1.
I can imagine where Dean's gone with this, and he'll be like super spotty and like, right, with this compressor, what you need to do is. So I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to talk about more generalism because he's probably covered that far better than I ever could. Right, okay, let's start with the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone as a producer, and that's know who you are. Know who you are and do things from the heart, because everything you do will be transparent. And if you try to copy, follow a fad, do something because it's in vogue, then that's transparent. Do things because you genuinely love what you are doing. Music is great because you can do music and you can do something in it that you love, and that's when you really win. If you want to do something that you don't really like, then go and work in a bank or something. No offense to bankers, but do you know what I mean? Within music, you should be doing things purely from passion to start with. If that leads to commercial success, then fantastic. But generally, it will only lead to commercial success if you do things with integrity and from the heart. That's the foundation. You get that right, and then you can build on top. If you don't, if you build from that way up, build on a fad, it's going to fall over, isn't it? So know who you are, know what you stand for, and stick by it. Evolve, of course, evolve as a producer and as an artist, but fundamentally know what you stand for.
Number 2.
Right, number 2. Think about the process of what you're doing from inception to the release of what you're doing. And what I mean by that is, before you start, map out in your head what you want, where you want this record to live, what label it wants, if it's not on your own label, then what label is it going to, what the approach of that is, what the marketing should be around the record. A lot of people get, not confused, I think that's not the right word, but underplay the fact that we are in the music business. Now that's multifaceted. It's music, it's all the creative bit, and then it's business, and that's all the business bit. And if you can get both of those things on song and right, then your product really starts to come alive. Because, there are some incredibly talented musicians, unfortunately don't get the kind of marketing and the business element of what they do right. And thus their music isn't heard. Unfortunately, it isn't this utopian, like, let's just make some great music, man, and it'll exist. Alas, that doesn't actually work. You have to think about this as a commercial entity and how you're going to fulfill that. And I know that sounds a little bit calculated, but you need to think along those lines from the original idea. Like if I think of a record, I think, right, okay, I'm going to write this record. I know what it's going to be. Then I try and imagine where it would be played in the environment, presuppose that through experience, or just a dream of where you want it to be. Dream of where you want it to be. Imagine the record in situ. Then imagine all the things you need to do around the making of that record to bring that to life. What's the marketing going to look like? What's the plot? Where's it going to go? What's the end game of the record? And think hard about that, where you're going to put it. Don't write a record like, if you want to write a super tech house record, then think, well, where's that going to sit? Don't send that to Eric Prydz, or conversely, don't write a really progressive record and send it to El Rowe. Think about where you're going to put that record. What's the right home for it? So, yeah, really map out each project before you start. That's the way I do things. I have my own label, but even internally, every record I do, I think about, right, okay, if I do this record, I play it here, that's how I market it, that's the plot we need to build around it. And then I'll go to the team and go, right, this is my idea, this is what I want to do with it. And then I get the team to, obviously put all their input in. They have some brilliant ideas, but build on my initial plot. So that's important, is to understand the whole timeline of the record from inception to release.
I guess it's that creative space. It's like, that's the whole point of being creative as well. Like, the music for me is a bit of creative, and the art and everything around it is creative as well. So it's,
yeah, absolutely. It's all of those things. You look at the best musicians and artists, the biggest artists in the world. They really understand both facets of that. They understand how to make the music and all the, as you say, all the creativity that goes into that. But they also understand all the creativity around being an artist and making them stand out, and all their campaigns and all the things they do strike a chord through individualism and creativity. So you need to think both through. Unfortunately, you can't just be, it requires more than just a dude sat behind a computer and banging out a tune. That isn't, unfortunately, the formula to success. It needs to be more than that.
exactly. Number 3.
Number 3, let's talk about arrangements. That can always be, as an aspiring producer, that can always be a real stumbling block, how you get over arrangements and how you tell the story with the piece of music you're trying to create. I would suggest this: take a record that you love of a similar ilk to what you're making and use it as a template. Yeah, you're not going to copy it because all your component parts are different. So you're not copying it, but what you want to copy is the story. Yeah. So, like, let's say you're writing a record like my record, everything's going to be all right. So look at how I've made that arrangement, put it into your project, and copy how I've done it. Copy how I made the arrangement in that record, or any record. I don't care. Go for it. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be the same. You know what I mean? Because I've already we've got one of them. So what the world hasn't got is your record yet. So if I can help in any way, then great. But put my arrangement put my track into the project, and copy the way things do, that the record tells its story, and bring things in at the same point. And then you'll go, okay, well then, yeah, that makes sense, because I know that record works in the club. I played it, or hopefully it works, and it translates. So use a point of reference in terms of your arrangement until you can get it down pat and you've got it, and then you just know, okay, that needs to happen there. But that'll come through time. That'll come through doing it not once, twice, not 20 times, but 40 times, 50 times, until you can get it yourself. But to start, taking an arrangement that works. I mean, I always used to love Full Intentions arrangements back in the day. They used to do the same thing on every record. And when we were playing vinyl back then, you just have to look at the vinyl and you could read the arrangement through the vinyl, but you knew what it was going to do because they did the same thing every time. And that wasn't a bad thing. It was a great thing because you knew that arrangement worked and killed and destroyed dance floors every single time you played it. So, and they weren't frightened of doing the same arrangement because they knew it worked, and they changed the parts every time. So every time it sounded fresh. So, yeah, in terms of arrangement, if you're stuck at that stumbling block that is arrangement, do exactly that. Take a record that you know works and just copy the arrangement. Exactly when the bass line comes in, when the hats come in, what makes it not being linear, where are the drops, where are the breakdowns, all of that stuff, copy.
Number 4.
I would say from a personal perspective, don't overcook the amount of plugins that you use. You know, be the master of a few as opposed to, you know, the master of none, you know, but really condense the amount of plugins you use and really hone in on how you use those plugins. Because I think what we get caught up in, and it has to happen nowadays, is the producer to a degree has to be the engineer, because there's not enough money back in the day, you know, unless you've got the money to go and sit in with an engineer or someone to do it for you, which is not, you know, which is totally cool as well. But if you're doing both, then don't overface yourself at the kind of early stages of your career with knowing how 1,000,001 plugins work and trying to write music at the same time. That will literally blow your head off. You know, that'd be too much information. So keep it simple, work with a simple set of plugins that do the job, and master the production in tandem with your knowledge of mastering the plugins. Once you've got better at both, then go up again, maybe expand a bit more. But you don't need thousands of plugins to make you a better producer. In fact, and my last tip,
Number 5.
you know, I get asked this question all the time: what's your favourite plugin? Well, my favourite plugin is an idea, because nothing works without a good idea. That is the foundation to your record. Don't worry about plugins. Don't even worry about that yet. That's later down the line. That's the decorating element of the record. Worry about the idea. Really think out your idea before you start. And if it means writing it down or getting a bunch of reference tracks that support the same idea of what you're doing, put them on your page so you constantly remind yourself of what you're trying to achieve with a piece of music. Because it's very easy to start at point A and then go to point B and then go, oh, I've got a W, then X, then E, or then back in and go all over the show. If you write out what you want to achieve, like I said earlier with the house thing, you know, if you're going to build a bungalow, build a bungalow. Don't start building a bungalow and end up with a block of flats. You know, sometimes you get happy accidents, but generally that doesn't work, you know. If you plan to build a bungalow, build a very good bungalow and stick with that idea. You might get to the end of it and go, do you know what, that idea wasn't as strong as I thought it was, but at least you've got to the point of fulfillment of that idea. You've explored that to its, you know, its potential, and whether the original idea was strong enough, at least you've seen it through. You've seen the project through from inception to completion.
Did you before you started? When we were talking about when you started the album, did you go and listen to loads of all those old records that you kind of had in your head and re-listen to them and really kind of just get that feel from before you even started again?
No, because I think I'm just always surrounded by music, listening to music, and I think more so in the pandemic when you're not caught up in your own bubble of listening to yourself in a nightclub every Friday and Saturday night, which gets a bit linear. Oh, I've heard this one before, mate, last Friday. You know, I love the radio. I absolutely love the radio. I never watch television ever at all. I've got apart from Match of the Day, I don't really watch television. I love the radio, and I have it on all the time, and I'm constantly soaking up vibes from things I hear on the radio. I love the concept of someone playing me music that I've never heard before and telling me about it or educating me. I'll never stop. I mean, that's the basic premise of being a DJ, is that constant hunger for new music and the education of new music. So I always have it on around me all the time. In our house, the radio's on all the time. So I'm constantly surrounded by that. And I think as I had this kind of blueprint in my mind, I don't think I need to go back and kind of familiarise myself with it, because I surround myself with it all the time. You know, whether I'm on my bike, cycling to the studio, or in the car, or at home in the kitchen, the music's on around me all the time.
Touring parties are coming back. Hurrah!
They certainly are.
Hurrah!
Yeah.
Let's talk about those.
In a big way. It'll be great to be back on it. I mean, who's not dying to get out and let loose? I know I am. I'm well up for it. And we're back. Our first touring show, we're back to Ministry of Sound. I suppose you could say it's my spiritual home. Definitely. I mean, it's the club that I grew up in. You know, I think I'm lucky enough to say that I lived through the 90s. We used to go to a night called Ruling at Ministry of Sound on Saturday night at midnight. I would say, yeah, it's hard to notice something when you're in it, when you're living in the moment. I suppose all the people who went to Studio 54 or the Paradise Garage never thought they were living in something so iconic. And I think Ruling at the Ministry of Sound in the mid-90s, is on par in club culture, with what things happen, the Paradise Garage and all of these seminal clubs. I think it was, especially in UK club culture, was as pivotal and as inspirational and as monumental as anything that's ever happened. And I used to go religiously on a Saturday night and listen to CJ McIntosh and Tony Humphries and Todd Terry. It was amazing. I mean, like, amazing. And even though you went every week and you were a member, there was a membership and it felt very, very inclusive. You get to the door and there's a guy called Kai used to run the door, and you'd be there every week and say, "Oh, no, not this week, mate." Like, really? And you'd break your heart. So you try extra special. And if you got in, it was like, you're in. Holy shit. And then you knew everyone went week in, week out. It was just amazing. I mean, it was like the Old Trafford of nightclubs for me. It was like the holy grail, and I always thought, oh my God, one day to be able to play here. And then I got the opportunity, and I was resident there for years and years. In fact, me and Steve Angelo were the residents together for many, many years. So it has a really, really special place in my heart, Ministry Sound. And we were there for many, many years. And we came away, we tried different things, and put my hand on my heart, I have to say it's probably, and I've had the opportunity to play some amazing clubs around the world, it's got to be in the top 5 clubs in the world in terms of the actual venue and the history and the spirit in it. And so we're bringing Toolroom back to Ministry on the 28th of August. All the Toolroom fam are there. Martin Iking, Casey Lights, Friend Within, is that right? Oh God, he says as he panics. Elias and Barrientos, Maxine, of course. We're all TCTS. We're all going to be there. And if you want to, if you want to precede New Year's Eve, then I think that will be it. But it's going to be New Year's Eve for about 3 months, isn't it? After the 19th of July here. So I think we'll still be knee deep in New Year's Eve vibes. So if you're around, love to see you down there. Be all the Toolroom gang down there. Come and have a beer with us. Come and let loose this. Let's have it for one night. It'd be great to see you.
And one of the rooms you go is the Toolroom Academy. Let's just touch on that before we go. Honest to God, if any producers watching, if you want to know, go and do their academy, because the production stuff that come out of it, like the producers that come out of it, have all been amazing. Like, I work with a load of guys that come out of it. The quality of producers you produce from that academy is incredible. So first, bravo. Let's just talk about that a little bit from your end.
I mean, the biggest accolade you could get through running a record label is people say that you've got a sound. People come to me and say, I've written a record, it sounds very Toolroom. In the same way as people say, oh, that sounds very Motown. If you can do something consistently over a period of time with the same quality threshold over and over and over again to build something that personifies a sound, there is no greater accolade you can have as an A&R person or a record label owner than that. And we've strived for that. If I walk away from that and say that we've tried to maintain a certain value, a threshold of quality in everything we do, then I can walk away from this a very, very proud man. And having done that consistently over the last 18 years, has given us the opportunity through consistency to be able to teach people the way we do it, what we expect, the production techniques we look for in the sound of Toolroom. This isn't, if you want a generalised course on how to make music, this isn't for you. If you want to know the nuances and the specifics of how you write a Toolroom record, then this course is for you. It's taught to you by some of the world's best producers, like Dean's an instructor on there. I mean, I would have given my right arm to be taught by someone like Dean Ramirez, who's had, who's genuinely an icon, in electronic music, heinously underplayed and undervalued for what he's done to this scene. I mean, I think he won an award with the most iconic synth sound that everyone copied for years in Body Rocks. We did that. He's one of the tutors on the course. So you're being taught by the best, not someone who's just going to tell you the basics of putting reverb on a snare. Someone who's going to teach you the inside information. Someone who's had a bona fide career in dance music. And we teach people to write music the way that we release it and what we're looking for and all the steps, from basic course to a masterclass. We do one-to-ones with these people. We have a suite of courses that cover the whole spectrum of the learning journey. And it follows the model of what sport's been doing for years. You know, it's my job, again, sorry to have another football analogy, I'm not the manager of the team, and I'm constantly recruiting for new players in the team. You know, I build a team of artists. You know, you've got your left wing Codys, you've got the Casey Lights, you've got Elias and Barons, Martin Arkin, all these are different players in the team, yeah? I don't need 10 centre forwards, I don't need 10 right backs, you know, I need a complement of artists that collectively make a sound. And like any team, you're constantly looking to update that with new talent and bring people through the academy. And sport's been doing this for years and years, football academies. This is nothing new, this concept. So for us, it's the perfect training ground to go, wow, you're good. Like Wheats, you know, we found Wheats through the academy. Maxing, all of these people have come through our training ground, you know, been brilliant on the training ground, proved themselves, you know, shown the loyalty to what we're doing. And then we've, you know, that they're in the family, we fast track them to a career. So this is a real in to, you know, if you like what we do and like what we're about and you're a good person, because that means a lot to us, you know, you're sound, you're down to earth, you're, you know, a nice person, that means a lot to us, and you've got skills and you want to hone them and you want to be part of the family, then this is the way to do that. Sign up, improve your skill set, and then hopefully, you know, one day we'll be sitting here talking about your music.
Mark Knight, thank you very much. I know you've got to go. I could listen to you all afternoon. I'd love to talk to you more about these records because I was so enjoyed talking to you about these records. Yeah, it's been amazing fun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man. Anytime, and thanks guys for listening. And if you get a chance, please check out the album. I mean, it means a lot to me. For you. People just do it once. If you like it, you like it. Don't, you know, no big deal. Let me know. You know, hit me up. Let me know. It's great to get the feedback. Don't blow smoke up my arse if you're not feeling it. Then tell me. You know, give me constructive criticism, because you're always learning. You're always growing as an artist. You know, people go send me a message. Oh, that's amazing all the time. It's like, man, because you could have tried that. You could have done that. You know, push me. I know, constantly learning, but I would love you to take the time out to check out if you get an hour. Thanks, Graham. Thanks for your time, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Which one of his 5 things did you get most out of, or what did you get most out of the video? Comment below. Let us know what you got out of this video, and let us know what resonated with you the most. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe. Please give it a little like. Like I said a bit earlier, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. It helps it get further, which means other people see it. Helps other artists out. Be kind. I've been Graham Farmer. I'll see you on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.